Hello, Texas Flutists. This is the practice guide for this year's TMEA All-State Etude number 2, which is Kohler Opus 33, number 10. And a little bit about Ernesto Kohler. He was an Italian composer from the Romantic era, and he was also a flutist. So that's why we have so many etudes by him, because as a flutist, he knew what the technical challenges were on the instrument, and then he set himself to write all sorts of etudes that would help us overcome the challenges we have when we're playing the instrument. All right, we're going to talk about 6 main areas in today's video. We'll discuss all of the musical terms we see on the page, talk about our key signatures that we're playing in, accidentals, ornamentation, some special articulation, and the thing that most people are struggling with, how to count the rhythm in this etude. So I'll be putting timestamps in the comments so that you can skip ahead to whichever subjects you feel like you really need to hear about, and that'll be a little more efficient with your time because this video is going to be long. All right, so let's jump in with the terms. Our first term is kind of the title of the etude, Adagio Patetico. So adagio means slow, patetico means expressing great feeling, or you can think of it as heartfelt. And then that's kind of compounded here, con molto espressione, with a lot of expression. And then don't forget we have a little tiny diminuendo in there. It's easy for that to get lost. All right, in line 2, we've got this rallentando. That's a tempo word that means slowing down. There's an upside down fermata here. Don't forget about that. And then this is why we have the tempo here, because we've slowed down and come to a pause, and then we need to go back to our original tempo. All right, piano voce. That means full voice. So you want to read this as forte with full voice. Then we have another diminuendo, ma dolce, which means but sweetly. So this forte is different. Forte but sweetly. So these two fortes, once you know what the terms mean, they're going to sound different because this one's just going to be full voice and this one's going to be loud but sweetly. Here's one more diminuendo. We have come echo, which means like an echo. So these runs are identical going up. The first one should be loud, and then the second one is labeled piano, so it should be soft like an echo. All right. Stentate, which means stunted. And I think this goes along with the accents that are over the note. So you want to make like a big deal about these. Don't rush through them. Like make sure they're, really heard and, maybe a little bit slower than everything else so they stand out. Then diminuendo, and then the E always means and. So diminuendo and ritardando. And ritardando is another one of these tempo words. It's very similar to rallentando up here. They're actually synonyms of each other in Italian. So they both just mean slowing down. Then we have un poco più mosso, so a little more motion. So that tells us we're going to be going faster in here. Then we get down here, crescendo and stringendo. And there's another term that's going to be telling us to go faster. So stringendo actually means clutching in Italian. And so as a musical term, we think of this as pressing ahead, having a sense of urgency, and it's typically used at the end of a section of music in anticipation of a change to a new faster tempo, which we have when we get here. So we already talked about più mosso, and so we've got to figure out what is ancora più mosso. So ancora means still, so still more motion, so still even faster here. And I'm going to talk about our tempo markings in a second here, but I want to finish with the terms. Then we've got con passione, with passion, and accelerando. That's, another one of these getting faster terms. Although the accelerando doesn't have the urgency like the stringendo does. It's just we're gradually getting faster. I kind of feel like a good mental picture of the accelerando and the stringendo is the accelerando is like you're speeding up to get on the highway or something. The stringendo is like a snowball that is tumbling down a hill and gaining speed as it goes, where it's just like there's no stopping this, and the accelerando is just more gradual, just getting there and staying faster. Okay, then we've got rallentando and diminuendo. We've talked about those. And then cadenza ad libitum. So a cadenza is a section of music. It's usually found between two fermatas, which this is, and then ad libitum means as you like it. So you can see there are clearly more than 6 beats worth of notes in here. There's no bar lines. This is your opportunity to really explore your musicality and just make this little section very unique to you. You can pretty much do whatever you want with it, along within the guidelines of like these notes should be roughly the same speed. Make sure you have your slur start here and there. Here's another slur and another slur, but you can shape this phrase however you'd like to do it. And okay, so that's the end of the cadenza, and then we have another odd tempo since we were out of time there, and then poco crescendo to end, which is a little getting louder. All right, so that does it for terms. So the next thing we're going to talk about are our tempo markings here. At the top we have eighth note equals 56 to 76. That's the TMEA guideline for this first section. And then when we get to ancora più mosso, it is dotted quarter equals 46 to 60. So these are very different because this one's triple as fast as the top one. So if you did the math on this, like if you're playing at 60 here, that's 180 for the eighth note. So that, quite a bit faster from 76 up to 180. But we have all of these terms in here that are gradually getting us faster. And I went back and listened to my performance video of this so I could give you an idea of how I got from here to there with my tempos. So I was playing around 72, 74 here at the beginning. And then when I got down to the un poco più mosso, I bumped it up. It was about 96 to 100. The stringendo getting faster and faster. It's that snowball tumbling down the mountain. By there, I was at like 120, 122. And then the ancora più mosso, I was up at like 160 or 165, which for the dotted quarter note would have been around 55. So you don't have to have exact tempos written out for that. You just want to make sure you are gradually getting faster from the beginning up until this point. All right, so now let's talk about our key signatures. We start off with no sharps and no flats, but we're in a minor key. So this is actually A minor. And then when we get down here to the ancora più mosso, we have 3 sharps. That's the key of A major. And those are called parallel majors and minors because the name of the key stays the same, but the accidentals surrounding that home base note of A are what is changing. All right, so what should we do next? Let's talk about accidentals next. Okay, most of these accidentals are standard things. Like D sharp equals E flat. But then there's 3 where I feel like maybe we don't see them as frequently. We've got E sharp here, which equals F. We have a B sharp down here, which equals C, natural. And then we've got this little X. And if you've never seen the X before, that is called a double sharp. So it's like having 2 sharp signs before the note, except for that would maybe take up too much space, so they decided to abbreviate it with just an X. So here's how a double sharp works. When you have 1 sharp on a note, it takes you up a half step, or you can think of it like it takes you up 1 note in the chromatic scale. So when you have two sharp signs in front of the note, it takes you up a whole step or two notes in the chromatic scale. So this F, if you go up one chromatic note, turns to F sharp. If you go up the second one for the second sharp, it turns into G natural. So F double sharp equals G natural. And on those less familiar accidentals like the E sharp, the B sharp, and the F double sharp, I would totally mark them in so that you don't have to try and make that change in your mind. You don't have to figure that out as you're suddenly reading it on the page. You can just have it written in there, so you don't have to struggle quite so much. All right. So now we're going to move on to ornamentation. We have single, triple, and quadruple grace notes. And I feel like most of you have probably seen grace notes before. So it's just a tiny note written with a slash, and it comes right before the beat. And then this is called the principal note, the one that's written normal sized. So it's like badam. And so the principal note is on the beat and the grace note is before it. Now, when you have triple and quadruple grace notes, there's no slash, but they're still written super tiny, so that's what they are. So again, the principal note is going to land on the beat, and these three are going to be right before it. Our quadruple grace note is down here at the end of the cadenza. And what this is, it's actually a written out turn. So this doesn't have to be super fast because we're in the middle of a cadenza, so you get to shape it how you want. And if it's acting like a turn, you probably want to play it more like a turn and less like a bunch of really fast notes. All right, so that is it for the grace notes. All right, here's the next thing, is the turns. And we have several of them, and the most important thing to know about the turns is they always happen on the last and of the beat. For here, we've got 3 beats on this note. So we have 1, 2, 3, and this one comes on the and. Here we've got 2 beats before the turn, 1, 2, and. So it'll start on the end of 2. And then this last one, this is worth 1 beat, so 1 and. So that's important. You might want to just mark those note values before and then put an and above it. But how does a turn work? I'm going to shift this up here so you can see. So this is the turn sign. It's like a sideways, upside down, or backward S. So you start on the printed note. You're going to go up 1, back to it, down 1, back to it. And if you connect these dots, look, you got a turn sign. So that's a great way to know where am I going. When you see the sign, you're going to go up first, back, and then down and back. Now, the first 3 turn signs all have a little sharp written underneath. So what that's telling you is that the lower note, the one that you go down to, that's going to be a sharp, even if it isn't written as an accidental, somewhere else in the music or in that measure. All right, so for the very first one, and I know it's out of the screen, but the very first note of the piece is an E, so we're going to start on E. You're going to go up to F, natural, because that's in the key signature, back to the E, down to D, but since you have the sharp sign, it's going to be D sharp, and then you're going to finish on the E, and there's your turn. Okay, back to the top. Our third turn here in measure 3. This one's going to work a little differently because we end the turn on this note. So it still starts on the and, but this one's going to feel a little more like a triplet. So we start on D. We're going to go up 1 to E, back to D. Then we've got the sharp sign here underneath, which means our C that we go to is C sharp. And then when we land on D, it's that D. So this one's going to feel like a triplet in here. So it's going to be like 1 and then a triplet on and. 1 triplet, 2. Actually, this is 1, 2, 3. This is beat 4. So 4 triplet 5, 4 triplet 5, a 6E and a is how that's going to go. So this one moves a little differently. The rest of these are 1, 2, 3, and like there's four notes in there. And then you go on to this on that next beat. So this one just works a little bit differently. All right, so we're going to move back. Oops, get it back in. There, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a few articulations in here. We've got in measure 4, you see these lines over the notes. Those are legato markings. And so that just means you're not playing them short or staccato. And I think the perfect example of this is we've got the legato markings here in 4, but if you look here in this measure, this one actually has a dot over it. And this one, it's like a slur into a dot. So these are meant to be shorter, and these are meant to be, like, I would call them full value. This marking can also mean tenuto, which means to hold the notes a little longer, but that's all based on context. And in this case, this just means full value. So that's what those are. And then we've got, here's a good place to show it. Well, okay, I'll use these. So we've got the accent marks. And so that just means you're adding stress to the note, emphasis or stress. Typically when I'm teaching accents, I write a capital T-A-H, like ta. And if you hear me saying that, you hear this little burst of air that happens as I say ta. And that's what makes the accent. Now, I don't know that I would do them really like that in this piece because it's a slow lyrical piece, but you definitely want to get that emphasis, and it is an articulation, so it is going to be kind of based on the tongue in there. The other one we have is these, sometimes people call them carrots. They're actually called marcatos, or you might see it abbreviated as mark underneath, M-A-R-C. So the marcato is sharply accented. So this one you are going to use like a little more percussive of a start with the tongue in there. So that is the difference between the accents and the marcatos. And that's really it for articulations in here. Otherwise, there's just an awful lot of slurs to keep track of and making sure they start and end in the correct place. Okay, and that brings us to rhythm. So we are in 6/8, and that tells you 6 beats in the measure, and then the 8 means 8th note gets a beat. Now, I'm going to, switch pages here so we have a blank page because I'm going to write you a little answer key for all of the rhythm. So when we are in 6/8, so that's 6 beats, whoops, B-E-A-T-S, beats per measure, and this is 8th note equals 1 beat. All right, so if 8th note equals 1 beat, quarter note is going to equal 2 beats. Dotted quarter note is going to equal 3 beats. Now that's as large as we get with the note values, but many of our notes are not even as long as an 8th note. So this is what gets so challenging about this, is we have a whole bunch of 16th notes. So since an 8th note is 1 beat, that means 2 16th notes equals 1 beat, or they are a half beat each. And then more than that, we have a bunch of 30-second notes. And that's where we start to feel uncertain about, like, how on earth am I going to count this? So here's where our answer key begins. Our first rhythm is a set of 4 30-second notes. And that is going to act just like our 16th note. a group of 4 16th notes does in 4/4. So those 4 equal 1 beat, and we count them 1 E and A. All right, then we're going to build off of that. So we've got a dotted 16th. Oops, excuse me, a dotted 16th with a 32nd. This is also going to equal 1 beat. And here's I'm going to grab a piece of paper here. Here's the easiest way to count this. If you take away the top bar, then it just looks like a dotted 8th note with a 16th note. And most people feel way more comfortable counting that rhythm. So that's counted 1 E and A. And that's the same, for all of these rhythms with the 30 seconds. Just take the top bar away, then it looks way more familiar. It just looks like a group of 16th notes, counted 1 E and A and equaling 1 beat. Okay, so that's our second rhythm. So a good example of number 1 is in measure 3, where you have just like regular 16th notes. All right, a good example of number 2, or the first time we see it, is in measure 2. And then just along the same lines as this, so this will be number 3. Except for we have a 30-second rest in there. So this is 1 E, the rest gets the and here's this last 30-second note, which over here equals A. So that's 1 E and A. So it's just like this, except for instead of having the rest, this dot takes the place of the rest. So it's still 3/4 of the beat, and then that's worth 1/4 of the beat. So still all equals 1 beat. All right. And the best place to see that, or the first place we see this, is in measure 10. All right, the fourth rhythm we have is dotted 8th note with a 30-second note. Oh wait, no, it's only a 16th note. Hold on, I'll take that line away. Okay, dotted 8th note with a 16th note. Now, this rhythm equals 2 beats. So, 8th note equals 1 beat. If you add a dot to it, the dot is worth half of the note value. So 1 plus a half is 1 1/2. So the whole beat would be 1 and the extra half beat is 2. And then we already said that 16th notes equal a half beat each. So this gets the other half of beat 2. It gets the and. 1 and 2 and. And then along the same lines as that, here's rhythm number 5. We have a dotted 8th note, and this is where we have 2 30-second notes. And you can find this one, this is in measure 4. So again, this is going to equal 2 beats. Same as this one, it's worth 1 1/2 beats, so 1 and 2. And then here's these 2 30-seconds, and you can always look back to this bass rhythm. Here are the 2 30-second notes, the last 2 30-second notes, so they're going to be and A. Okay, then there is one more rhythm, and we only see this one once, but it is a doozy. So this is measure 23. This is a double dotted 8th note with a 30-second. Ooh, that actually made it less clear. Let's do that again. So there's the first dot. Here's the second dot. So a double dotted 8th note with a 30-second. All right. So we talked a little bit, how do you do a dot? So here's our note. This is worth 1. The first dot is worth half of the note value attached to it, half of this note's value. The second dot is worth half of the first dot's value. So yeah, everything is based on what is before it. So this is worth 1. This is worth half of 1, which is a half. And then this is worth half of the first dot. So half of a half is a quarter. And then you can add your fractions up. So get a common denominator. That'll be 2/4 plus 1/4. Add across the top. Keep your denominator the same. That equals 3/4. So it's 1 3/4 beads. All right, how do you count 1 3/4 beats? That's a very good question. Well, we're going to start with the 1, which is 1 and then here's how we divide a beat into 4 equal parts. And that's, if you want to find out what 3/4 of it is, you have to know what 4/4 of it is. So our next number is going to be 2, so it'll be 3, the first 3/4 of it, 2E and then here's this single 16th note that we've had so many other times. It's the right at the end. So 1 2E and is how you count that. So this one also ends up being 2 beats. Okay, so this is the answer key for all of the 32nd note based rhythms in here. We still have a couple more to go because now we need to talk about the triplet rhythms that we have in here. And there's only 3. Move this up so you can see the bottom of the page. All right, so those are the 32nd based, and now we'll go with the triplet based. So the first one is in measure 6. And that is the 16th note triplets. So these equal 1 beat. Number 2. These are 32nd note based triplets. And these are going to equal a half of a beat. So you can find, sorry, my camera got away from me. Measure 5. Right? Yeah, measure 5 for this one. And then our third one is kind of based on that, where we have the group of 6. And they are 6 32nd notes. This all equals 1 beat. So, I mean, if you look here, it can be divided into 2 of these. So they're a half beat each. So this would be like the first half to be like the number 1, and then this triplet would be on the and. So this would be 1 and. Okay, so how do we count the triplets in time? And actually, I'm going to leave this up here for a minute where you can see the whole page. If you want to take like a screenshot so that you have a little answer key for yourself, this is actually a really great resource. So take a quick screenshot, and now I am going to take us back over to the previous page to see some of this in action. So here we go. Here's the triplet one first. So this is the one that's worth 1 beat. So we have 1. Oops, what was that? Hold on. Make sure I have the pen going. Okay, so this is 1. Then we tied a 2 and 3 and. This is beat 4, and then here our triplet starts on 5, and this triplet is on 6. So normally I count triplets like triplet, or like blueberry or strawberry. The other way you can count triplets, which kind of works better here, is say the number and then lolly. So this would be 4, 5 lolly, 6 lolly. And I think it's a little bit better because you've got the tie here and you want to keep track of here's where beat 5 comes in. 4, 5 lolly, 6 lolly. And we have the same rhythm down there with that. Then our second kind of triplet is right here. Now, this is something that is super important. This dot on the E, that's a misprint. This is worth a half a beat, which means this has to be worth the other half the beat. And I know I had some students go down to the U of H TMEA All-State Prep Day, and Peggy Russell and Tyler Martin also we're telling students there that this is a misprint. So it's not on the TMEA website as of right now, but if you count out the beats, you know either this dot has to be wrong or these need to be 64th note triplets. So we're going with the dot being wrong, and we're going to keep this triplet as a half beat. And then here are the groups of 6, which easily divide like into 2 of those half beat triplets, or you could kind of mark them up top like that too, if that makes more sense to you, just so that you can be grouping them and thinking triplet, 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 instead of having to keep track of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notes all at the same time. All right, so I want to use measure 4 as an example. I think this is the hardest measure in the piece to count. And honestly, I have these measures numbered right here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 10 and 23. These are where all of the examples of rhythm that I showed you over on this other page, this is where they land in the music. So the first 10 measures are incredibly intense with the rhythm. Actually down until about measure 23. This is the most challenging part rhythmically, and then it gets easy from here to the end. It's way more straightforward. So let's try to use measure 4 as an example here. Apparently I'm not going to be able to make it any bigger, but I want to show you, let me just erase that so that we can put the rhythm in for you. All right, so this was, what was this? This was example number 5 on our rhythm page from before. So this is worth 1.5 beats. So this is 1 and 2. Then these 2 get and a. Now here's a group of 30-second notes. So that's the easy part. This is all beat 3. And I'm just going to write a big 3 above that because you don't need to see the 3 E and a. Like how to count like just the full beat of 30-second notes, 3 E and a. Then this is the other 2-beat rhythm we had. This was example number 4. So this is on beat 4. So this will be 4 E and then the C gets the And then this is the first dotted rhythm we had. This was example number 2. It's the 1-beat dotted rhythm. Oops, I labeled that wrong. Whoops, let me go back here. This is a 2-beat. So this is 4 and 5, and this gets and. Sorry about that. All right, then this is beat 6. So this is 6 E and that one gets a. So hopefully you can see this. I know it's pretty tiny if you're looking at this on your phone. 1 and 2 and a, 3 E and a, 4 and 5 and 6 E and a 1, like that. Okay, so why are we going through and figuring out how to put all this counting in? Well, you can listen to my recording or someone else's recording all day long, and you can get a great idea of how it sounds. But unless you actually understand how the rhythm is subdividing, you're not going to play it absolutely accurately. So that's why I thought it would be beneficial for you to have like this entire answer key over on this page, so that you can go through and you can figure out like, okay, how am I counting this rhythm, and why is it divided like this, and why is this note longer than one of the other notes. So hopefully this is a really helpful guide for you. If you are counting through and you're encountering problems with it, you can always drop me a comment below, and I get back to everybody. I respond to every single comment that's left on my videos. I am happy to walk you through anything with ornamentation, accidentals, rhythm for sure. Just ask a question, and I am certainly happy to point you in the right direction on this. This is a super challenging etude, rhythm wise, and I mean frequently the second etude has a lot of rhythm, but this is harder than it's been in many years. So a lot of this is probably new for you. And I don't want you to struggle. I want you to feel like you can understand what's going on with it. So remember the little trick where all you have to do is like take a piece of paper and cover up the top line. That makes it look like a 4/4 rhythm. That's probably going to make more sense to you. And then use this guide to help you figure it out. All right. Good luck, you guys. See you in the next video.